Hey everyone, do you remember Son of Beast? That crazy, world changing, rough, ahead of its time coaster, the world's tallest, fastest, only looping wooden roller coaster that opened up at Kings Island in the year 2000. Well, it's been 23 years since the new millennium came, and we're still here. But Son of Beast isn't. But is it in some sense? Is there any hope for its future? I'd like to take a few minutes with you and just remember Son of Beast and think about its legacy that still impacts us today. And before we get started, if you'd be interested in considering subscribing or liking, I'd be so grateful. Thank you so much. The year was 1999. As the world prepared for the new millennium, theme parks devised new ways to thrill guests, ways to make their mark on the new era. Parks would build bigger, faster, more exciting than ever, and for the new millennium, Kings Island would tap into the legacy of one of their most defining coasters ever from 2 decades earlier, the Beast. But this time, guests would encounter the Beast's son, the tallest, fastest, and only looping wooden coaster in the world. I remember as a kid who frequented Kings Island seeing the footers begin to arise out of the ground. This project was going to be huge. For the 1999 season, Kings Island had opened Face Off and Dropstone Stunt Tower, and now another huge thrill machine was on the way. A mysterious rumbling crate sat in the park, foreshadowing the beastly experience to come. Over the winter, my family would visit the park to observe the ride's progress. We used to drive past the Custom Coasters facility on the way to Kings Island. I had heard a rumor that Denise Den of CCI had said that a wooden coaster with a loop couldn't be done. Time would tell. When Son of Beast opened in the new millennium, it was a very exciting time. I remember the line for Sunny being so long, it was all the way out to King Cobra's Helix. My mom waited in line for me while she let me go and ride other rides because the line was so long. The coaster had reliability problems, so whenever we got a ride, it was very special. When I became old enough, I got a job at Kings Island as a ride operator. It was awesome. I ended up working at the park for 4 seasons, and it was a huge blessing. I recommend it to anybody. My second and third season, I got to work at Son of Beast. It was like a dream come true. I loved the ride as a kid, and now I got to operate it. It was a really special feeling working at Son of Beast. It felt monumental, historical. It wasn't just any ride. I remember being told that Son of Beast had been built on some of the land from the old Animal Safari ride, and that there may be remnants of that ride still left out by Son of Beast. Being around Son of Beast, it had a sense of significance. It was like the ride was surrounded by park history, and it was making park history. The ride was absolutely massive. When the train engaged the lift hill, it had already gone down the hill out the station, so it was already going at a pretty good speed. And when it hit that lift hill, underneath the lift, there was this structure where some of the mechanisms were, and I could stand and see as the train started going up the lift, just the massive movement of all the gears turning. It was amazing. The lift hill was huge. Working at Son of Beast, I would rarely be able to walk up the lift hill. I remember one time a train full of guests had stopped towards the top of the lift, so I was sent out to climb the lift hill to comfort the guests, and it was like climbing a mountain. It was kind of spooky being so high up there, but it was awesome. One of the most extreme parts of Son of Beast was the huge helix towards the middle of the ride. People called it the Rose Bowl. It was absolutely massive, and it was probably the roughest part of the ride. I remember one time it was a rainy day. I had on a poncho. It was towards nighttime. It was dark outside, and I rode Son of Beast, and I just had the poncho pulled over my head. And going through that Rose Bowl, I couldn't see anything. I was just being shaken up. It was crazy, but it was super, super thrilling. As I worked at Son of Beast, sometimes I would take my lunch break. I'd go by myself with my bagged lunch and I would sit under the structure of the coaster. I remember sitting there as the trains would thunder past. I could just sit kind of hidden like in a forest of wood all around me. Working at Son of Beast was a really great season of my life. I remember the fun, being so close to the coaster, the friendships, working with the crew, growing and developing as a person. It was a really sweet time. So, what is the legacy of Son of Beast? And is it still living on in any sense? Does it have a future? Well, I think back to the year 2000 when Son of Beast opened. Back then, I couldn't imagine the kind of RMC coasters opening today with all kinds of twists and turns and inversions. Back then, one loop was out of this world. If I could travel forward in time today, my mind would be blown. And I can't help but think that perhaps one of the legacies of Son of Beast is this desire to incorporate inversions into wooden coasters. When we ride Steel Vengeance or Iron Gwazi, perhaps there's a part of the life and legacy of Son of Beast that continues on. I think another legacy of Son of Beast is the way that it has instilled the idea of wooden coasters at Kings Island. I remember in the year 2000, I was a member of the American Coaster Enthusiasts. I got their monthly update magazine reports. And in the year 2000, there was an article that came out titled "Ohio is on Fire." And it was about all the cool things going on in the state of Ohio. Millennium Force was opening. Six Flags Ohio had a bunch of new coasters. And Kings Island, the way it was coming into the new millennium, was with a Hyper Woody, the Son of Beast. So it seems like Kings Island sees itself, its specific contribution to the theme park industry, as being a leader of wooden coasters. And I remember years later when Kings Island announced that they're going to be opening Mystic Timbers. At first, I thought that was kind of an odd new attraction. I mean, the Beast is in Rivertown, and then just a little bit further down the road, they're opening a new wooden coaster that goes out in the woods and back. But the more I thought about it, I thought, I think Cedar Fair, they still see Kings Island as a leader with wooden coasters, and the guests of Kings Island is the kind of people who really love wooden coasters. So I think Son of Beast helped create that identity for Kings Island. A few years ago, some mysterious posters showed up at Cedar Point that led some to believe that Son of Beast in some form may be coming back, perhaps in the form of an RMC coaster. Now, what were those? Who created them? They still have me puzzled. Were they made by fans? Were they made by Cedar Fair? Whoever did them seems to invested a good amount of time in both thinking about them and then executing them. They look really good, but of course, no RMC Son of Beast has been built yet. So what does that mean? Well, I think for one, we see that there's still an interest amongst the Kings Island fan base in Son of Beast, that there's still this intellectual property, this franchise of the Beast and the Beast family that people still love. Of course, some of the newer coasters, Diamondback, Banshee, they're great, their themes are great, but I don't think they have quite the connection that Son of Beast did. And perhaps there could be some future for the Beast intellectual property at Kings Island. The queue line of Son of Beast is still there. The station is still there. Who knows what the future could hold? Son of Beast is also part of a bigger legacy of Kings Island. Kings Island has a really awesome history of taking risks, of creating prototypes, and some of them are successful. The Racer, kicking off the second golden age of roller coasters. The Beast, still the world's longest wooden coaster. The King Cobra, the Outer Limits Flight of Fear, with what it did for roller coaster launching technology. But of course, sometimes prototypes, risks don't take off. I think about the 1981 Bat and Son of Beast, of course. Even in Kings Island's DNA, them picking up from existing at Coney Island and moving a whole park to Kings Mill, that was a big risk. So I see Son of Beast as part of that risk-taking legacy that makes Kings Island who it is. And since Cedar Fair has taken over, they've done such a great job. They've built great, reliable coasters. I think about the 3 huge B&M coasters. But I wonder if we've lost a little bit of the risk-taking that historically Kings Island has done, that Son of Beast is part of the legacy of. In a sense, I don't see Son of Beast as a failure. I see it as Kings Island being true to its own nature, and I love that Kings Island took the risk it did in the new millennium to build a coaster unlike any that had ever been built. And I hope that as time goes on, Kings Island will continue to be true to that legacy of risk-taking that sometimes pays off in unbelievable, industry-changing ways. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the video. I would love it if you would consider liking and subscribing. I'd love to do more of these videos. I had a lot of fun making this one. So thanks so much. Have a great day. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.